You're starting to hear the rumblings online of what kind of guy the Devils should go after, right? The analytically driven guy, someone who uses that as a philosophy versus someone who uses that like as a tool. And where do you guys stand with, this whole analytics conversation? If the Devils should go with someone, excuse me, who is very analytically driven versus the guy who just uses analytics but not makes it their whole entire, I guess, decision-making process. Where's the balance there?
I got a lot of thoughts on this, and I started off by saying I love metrics. I love utilizing them. I throw them out on the show a lot. I throw them out online a lot. I think it's a great tool, one of the great things we have in addition to talking to the people we talk to in the league, talking to guys like Rupper who understand the game because they played it. It all plays a role in how non-players like me, whether in the media or you're a fan, understand the game. Um, so I never would turn it down. And when you talk to people in the game, and Rupper, probably the same for you, and Johnny, same for you. You know lots of people in hockey now. Um, it is a piece. It can be a big piece. It can be a small piece. I think we do a lot of armchair quarterbacking after the fact to assign responsibility for a certain trade or a certain signing or a certain success or a certain failure to the analytics department or to the GM, which I think is hilarious to me. Like, Sonny Mehta, everybody who knows him knows that he's a very sharp guy. I can't say for sure what he's responsible for in Florida and what he's not. I don't know if he could say that because he's part of a group of AGMs and who work under Bill Zito. And the GM means you make the final call. You distill all the information and you make that call, whether you're saying that you're using a lot of the analytics or you're using a lot of your scouts or you're using a lot of your own intel or you're using your gut, whatever. So I find it funny that whether it's Keith Pelly, the head of MLSE, coming out saying after they fired Brad Treliving that they're going in this analytical direction, or whether we're hearing behind the scenes Jersey is the same. Toronto has the biggest analytics department of any team in the league, led by a guy in Daryl Metcalf, who by all accounts does a fantastic job. And his stuff has been used, whether it was Kyle Dubas, who brought in Daryl and most of that department, that's all still there, or whether it was Brad Treliving or Brendan Shanahan, those things factored in. So it makes me smile a little bit to hear like, oh no, these guys are worthless because nobody's listening to them or whatever it is. And then in Jersey, Tyler Dello was there for a long time, is now in Carolina, could certainly be a candidate for the Devils GM job. Matt Cain was there for a long time, a guy who's worked in analytics spaces, public and private, for a long time. Really well-respected guys. So I don't understand where you get from having two of the bigger and more well-used analytics departments on these two teams to then their executives saying internally or publicly, we need more analytics. We need a guy who's going to focus on analytics in the main job. To me, that sounds like kind of like how people in tech say like, well, AI, you got to use it. Like, you got to explain to me why, because the human element of our game of hockey is huge. Relationships are huge. Whether you're the GM who's got to explain to a player that we might be trading you, or negotiations, or all these different things. There is such a human element, relationship wise, feeling wise, the emotion of the game on the ice, off the ice. It all plays a part to me. So to sort of boil it down in a chat GPT sort of way to like, we need more analytics in our decision making. Like, well, great. Could someone explain to me why you weren't doing it before with all these people you had, A, and B, what the difference is going to be, or C, how is that going to affect you? If Sonny Mehta comes in and he's the GM, great. He's got to deal with his ownership. If he doesn't have a president above him, he's got to deal with his AGMs and all the other decision-making parts that maybe he didn't do as much of in Florida. And he's got to deal with the room. He's got to deal with players. He's got to deal with agents, all this stuff it's a real juggling act, and it's not the easiest job. So I feel like whoever comes in for the Devils at GM, whoever comes in, the Leafs are secondary. Sorry, Vic. But whoever comes in for the Devils, we talked about it. This is a team that's pretty close to me, pretty close to competing again. Are you going to take an analytic view? Sorry, Rupper, I'll give it to you over in a minute. Are you going to take this analytics forward view and say like, well, no, we got to shake it all up because we don't this guy doesn't really fit a good metric profile, or this guy, his metrics are not so good with what we're doing, so we got to change some things up or get rid of that guy. You focus on that element of it, and I'm not so sure that you're overcorrecting for something that you don't need to correct for.
Oh, I thought you were gonna kick it over to me, John.
That's it. I'm done.
Arthur said he's gonna send it over to you. I was waiting for you.
No, that was well said. So the thing for me, it's like when you say it from that standpoint too, all those things you hit on were money, because any corporation has a strong analytics influence in it. Like you're talking the big time corporate. That's what NHL team is. Like it's a big piece of the puzzle, whether people want to admit it or not. It is not the only thing, but it is certainly part of the puzzle. And I guess that's the part I kind of get a chuckle on. I know this is a tri-state hockey pod, so we're not going to talk about the Leafs. That was what I got a chuckle about with the Keith Pelly press conference. It's like, you guys have the biggest analytics department in hockey. So like we're all of a sudden going to start paying attention to analytics like that. You have, you know what I mean? So, but here's the thing with analytics for me. It's like there's a chain of command in every hockey team. And so you're going to have the owners at the top. And that's why we've seen power struggles in the past. Do we have a president? Do we have a GM? Sometimes that's a little bit of this. It has nothing to do with analytics. It's just the pipeline to the ownership. And a lot of those things, it's managing relationships. You've got to be good at it. You have to be relational. And the thing for me that isn't always relational is this analytics, and that's it. At some point, that chain of command trickles down, and the analytics you want to get across and you want people to use and adapt and use as a resource is going to come across somebody that is hockey concept related person, whether that's a coach, whether that's a GM, assistant GM, or the players. At the end of the day, you have to have someone that can explain this. Show me how this concept, what can I do hockey concept wise to make sense? Like you have to be able to be very good at creating those relationships and explaining these things and being on the same page. Otherwise, it's going to be this power struggle. So, that to me is where the biggest thing is that you can't just sit there and, like, for example, we did a breakdown the other day at NHL Network, and I use Sport Logic. We've talked about that before. And I was doing a breakdown on the Philadelphia Flyers and how they were on that 11-3-1 run, and they're in the playoff spot, third in the Metro. And I remember thinking back, all right, what angle do we want to do for this breakdown? I started thinking the last 2 years, they've been one of the best rush generating teams in the league. And they didn't really generate offense any other ways. So I remember that because I've done that before on them. So I'm like, all right, let's see where they're at this year, because they're in the playoff spot. So maybe they've gotten better in those other areas. So I looked, they haven't. They're still not good at generating offense off the cycle, off the forecheck. They have a lot of weakness as far as generating consistent offensive looks, and on the rush is actually down for them. So I'm like, so why are they in the playoff spot there, and why are they better now? So this is like how a hockey person has come around to using analytics, where I'm like, all right, let's dig into this a little bit. You start looking, goaltending's been huge. You got Vladar and Harrison have been lights out, and the things that they've done, they've gotten timely goals at the right time. And then you start asking, is this sustainable? Like, whatever. That's how this stuff works. But you can't just read the analytics and say, hey, we've been a good rush team, and then here's the numbers. We're not good on the forecheck. Go be better on the forecheck. Like, no, you need someone to know the personnel, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how to implement hockey systems that would do that, so that you take that knowledge and you gather it, and then you have to make sense of it and make somebody that makes hockey decisions believe in it and change the way your team plays. And that's something that you need a communicator. You know what I mean? And that's the most important part. You can get the smartest guy in the world. You put him in there. If he can't communicate that message to hockey players and find out a way to turn this into hockey actual value, then you got nothing, man. You got absolutely nothing.
Well, let me give you the example right now while we're talking about the Devils, Rupper. I'm just looking at Sport Logic while you're talking about it. The Devils, when it comes to even strength ozone dump-in attempts, they're last in the NHL since the Olympics. So since they've returned from the break, they are last. And then the dump-in recoveries, they're second to last. But then you look at the flip side of that, which is the controlled entries and controlled entry attempts, they're third. In successful controlled entries, they're second. In controlled entry success percentage, they're second. So what does that tell you? The Devils, when they skate the puck over the blue line, they're one of the better teams at doing so. The Devils, when they try to dump it in or even do dump it in, they're not good at getting it back. So what do the Devils need to go out and find? Guys that can fucking make plays off the forecheck. Like that's something that we talked about, why they struggle against Carolina so much. That came up 2 weeks ago, where Carolina is one of the best teams at recoveries. So if they're going against the Devils, who are one of the worst, obviously Carolina is probably going to come out on top a majority of those times. So when it comes to like finding the analytically driven GM, are you asking this guy to go find undervalued players who can then fix that issue? But in reality, it's also the coach is the one making the lineup decisions. You don't want the GM telling the coach who to play every night. You know, like it's the GM's job to go get those players, and it's the coach's job to make the best of the situation that he has with said players. So I think you almost want your coach to be more analytically driven than the GM, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's like a different conversation in that sense, but like
your coach has to value it, and that's really important. He has to understand it, and there has to be a conversation. Like I'll use an example. So Mike Kelly, who, we all know Mike Kelly, director of analytics and insights at SportLogic. I've known Mike since I've been done playing. He was actually a host on NHL Network when I first retired in 2015. We were up in Toronto and whatever. I've been friends with him for years, talking to him, and just I was one of the anti-analytics as much as anybody. And so I'm like, I was almost playing like devil's advocate with him all the time. Well, what about this? Like, so because what you just told me right there, yeah, no shit. Your teams like to carry the puck in possession in the offensive zone over the blue line. Like, yeah, that's hockey. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you're going to be
the Panthers.
Sometimes you're not going to be able to do that, and you have to have the right personnel to understand when the right time and all that stuff. So, Mike, for an example, I'm just saying, I think there's going to be some day where I think there's a ton of value in a guy like this, and there's others. I've known Valley for a long time, and the way Valley explains things is incredible too. Yeah. You need guys to be able to explain and to listen to the hockey concept side and work together and have this relationship kind of going back and forth and come up with good things. And the thing I'll say with Mike Kelly is he's transformed me. I use it every single day now, and it's a big driving force, me fact checking myself, driving like where I want to go and look at the eye test and all that stuff. But also a guy like Mike Kelly, he works with 31 of the 32 NHL teams. And even in the TV stuff he does here at NHL Network and the other, platforms he's at, he's working with former NHL players, and he does stuff on the side with current NHL players, working on their game too. So my point is he's communicating with hockey players to understand this and want to use it moving forward. If you don't have a guy that can do that socially and effectively communicate, then there's no point on doing any of this. You know what I mean? It's just going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight that we see online all the time, because there's the online people that are like, take your numbers and shove it. I just want this and whatever. And that's we're moved past that now. We're never going to go back to that. But then on the same note, when Keith Pelly gets up there and says, we want this analytics. Finally, we never have to listen to those dinosaurs again. Okay, well, good luck. That chain of command, transferring that, like, good luck going and talking to Jack Hughes and giving him a spreadsheet and saying, this is how your game has to change to get us to the next level. He's going to say, beat it.
Fuck off.
You know what I'm saying?
Fuck off, nerd.
Yeah, like it's not as easy as hiring the brightest guy in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I totally agree with you, Rupper. And also, it's Major League Baseball underwent these changes, whatever, in the last 15 years, where you have a lot of GMs who come from the analytics world, and you see the binders that the managers have now, and everybody's kind of talking about how the numbers have kind of, the data has kind of taken over baseball. Some people feel like it's taken the fun out of it, and if you want to do that for hockey, your coach on the bench is not going to pull out a bunch of note cards and look for charts. Like, game just moves at a much different pace than baseball does or football does. And I think if you focus on making your head front office guy a more analytics forward guy, you are putting a lot more power in the hands of your coach. And that could be a good thing because coaches are the ones that have to distill all this different stuff and make it sound palatable to players, like you were saying, Rupper.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are very, a lot of them are very good at it. Some of them are not as good at it. But they're the ones that are the entry point for all the players into turning these concepts into winning hockey. But if you give them more power and you're firing coaches at a rate of every couple of years, how organizationally, what sort of process are you creating for your organizational structure where you're changing your concepts and you're changing your power base every 2 or 3 years if it's not working? Then you've hired nobody to be your GM essentially. And I've never worked in a corporate environment in my whole life, but I understand the way these things work. Processes and structure are the most important things to have. And what modern corporations try to do is make sure that the person at the top and the person at the bottom are all focused on the same things, them and everybody in between, so that you take a piece out, you put a new piece in, it doesn't matter. They're all aligned. And that's what we see, whether you have a new coach at the NHL level, you want to make sure the AHL guys are playing the same way. All these things that people talk about now that weren't necessarily talked about for a long time in hockey. And I feel like if you focus on doing this, getting a GM that's only experienced or exceptional in this one area, you are ceding power over the actual game to somebody else. And that makes no sense to me.